The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. The Heiress and the Scheme. In the dimly lit drawing room of Limeridge House, Sir Percival Glyde paced back and forth, his boots echoing against the marble floor, where the last rays of sunlight filtering through the large glass doors at the lower end cast a soft, hazy twilight. The delicate interplay of light and shadow added to the atmosphere of comfort and sophistication. The sweet evening scent of the flowers from the terrace mingled with the muted light, enveloping the room with a fragrant welcome. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, were fixed on a portrait of Laura Fairley, the heiress whose wealth he was determined to claim. The thick and soft carpet felt like piles of velvet underfoot, and the smoothness of the silk curtains seemed to whisper secrets to each other. "Count Fosco," Sir Percival called out, his voice barely concealing his impatience. Count Fosco emerged from the shadowy corner of the room, a sly smile playing on his lips. He stood at about 5 feet 5 inches tall, with a well-proportioned body and a peculiar air about him. His dark hair was slicked back, revealing a prominent forehead and piercing brown eyes that twinkled with mischief. He wore a black coat with tails, adorned with intricate silver embroidery, and carried an ebony cane with an ivory handle shaped like a serpent's head. "My dear Sir Percival, when have my schemes ever failed?" Count Fosco said, his voice low and soothing. "The key is to play on their fears, to weave a web so intricate that they cannot but fall into it." Meanwhile, upstairs, Marian Halcombe stood by the window, her gaze lost in the starless night sky. Laura sat at the vanity, her fingers trembling as she clasped a locket around her neck. "Marian," Laura whispered, "I feel as though I'm being ensnared in a trap I cannot see." Marian turned, her expression resolute. "Fear not, Laura. I will not let harm befall you. We shall uncover their deceit." Just then, a soft knock at the door startled them. It was Mr. Hartright, his face etched with concern. "Miss Halcombe, I must speak with you." "It's about Sir Percival." In the quiet of the library, Mr. Hartright revealed his suspicions. "I've seen Sir Percival and Count Fosco in secret meetings, and there's a letter addressed to Miss Fairley in a strange handwriting. I fear their intentions are not honorable." Marian's eyes narrowed. "We must protect Laura at all costs. I will speak with her myself, and ensure she does not fall prey to their schemes." As Mr. Hartright and Marian devised a plan, little did they know that their every move was being watched. Count Fosco, hidden in the shadows, rubbed his hands together in glee. The game has begun, my friends, and I hold all the cards." Unbeknownst to them all, a mysterious figure lurked in the corridors of Limeridge House. A woman dressed in white, her face obscured by a veil. She moved silently, her presence a portent of secrets yet to be unraveled. Her connection to the house and its inhabitants was more than mere coincidence. Her silent footsteps in the corridor echoed with the weight of untold stories, hinting at a past intertwined with the fate of those within. In the days that followed, Sir Percival's pursuit of Laura intensified. He showered her with lavish gifts and flattered her with charming words, all while Count Fosco pulled the strings from behind the scenes. Laura, unaware of the true nature of their intentions, found herself drawn to Sir Percival's allure. Yet a nagging sense of doubt lingered in her mind, fueled by Marian's warnings. One evening, as Laura sat alone in the garden, a faint sound reached her ears. It was the soft, melancholy strains of a violin. Following the melody, she found herself drawn to a secluded summer house, where she discovered Mr. Hartright, his eyes closed as he played. "Mr. Hartright," Laura whispered, taken aback by the beauty of his music. Startled, Mr. Hartright lowered his violin. "Miss Fairley, I didn't realize anyone was here." "It's quite all right," Laura replied, stepping inside. "Your music is beautiful. It stirs something deep within me." As their eyes met, an unspoken connection formed between them. Mr. Hartright saw beyond Laura's wealth and perceived the vulnerable soul beneath. In that moment, he made a silent vow to protect her from the dangers that lurked in the shadows. Little did Laura and Mr. Hartright know that their encounter would set in motion a chain of events that would change their lives forever. Count Fosco, ever the manipulator, was already weaving his web, ready to ensnare them all in his treacherous plot. Meanwhile, Marian delved deeper into the mystery surrounding Sir Percival and Count Fosco. She discovered whispers of their dark pasts and clandestine dealings, piecing together fragments of information like a puzzle. In the quiet of her room, Marian pored over the clues she had gathered. There's something amiss with those. The woman in white. After parting ways with his family, Mr. Hartright's journey back to London was uneventful. Upon his arrival at Limmeridge House the following day, he was introduced to Miss Halcombe, Laura's half-sister. During their conversation, Mr. Hartright mentioned his brief encounter with Anne Catherick, which piqued Miss Halcombe's interest. Actually, she revealed Anne's past connection to the house and her peculiar retention of information, despite a slow learning process. Their discussion led to the realization that Anne might be crucial in understanding the threats surrounding Laura. Miss Halcombe also noted Anne's striking resemblance to Laura, suggesting a deeper connection. As Mr. Hartright became more involved in the mystery, Anne's sporadic appearances and cryptic comments about the dangers posed by certain noblemen added urgency to their quest to protect Laura. The discovery of Anne's upbringing in Hampshire, Sir Percival's home county, hinted at a hidden past intertwining their fates. Mr. Hartright and Miss Halcombe resolved to unravel the truth behind Anne's cryptic warnings and safeguard Laura from any impending peril. Anne's elusive nature and her ties to Hampshire were not the only threads that caught Mr. Hartright's attention. He recalled the lady with the dark complexion and masculine features, whose confident demeanor and clear, pleasant voice had left a strong impression on him. This lady, one of his pupils, had greeted him with warmth, defying the conventional expectations of beauty and grace. Her interaction with Mr. Hartright, along with Pesca's emotional outbursts and imperfect English, added layers to the narrative, emphasizing the importance of looking beyond appearances. The theme of individuality was further explored through these characters, each contributing to the rich tapestry of the story. As Mr. Hartright pondered these encounters, he realized that every individual at Limmeridge House, regardless of their quirks or backgrounds, might play a role in the unfolding mystery and the protection of Laura. With this in mind, he prepared to engage with the inhabitants of the house, seeking clues and forming alliances, all while being mindful of the cryptic warnings that loomed over them. Unveiling the past. The morning mist still clung to the moors as Walter Hartright made his way to Todd's Corner, the place where Anne Catherick was last seen. "Good morning, Mr. Hartright," greeted Mrs. Clements, the kindly woman who had taken Anne under her wing. "What brings you out here so early?" "I'm seeking answers about Anne," Walter replied. "Sir Percival seems particularly interested in her whereabouts." Mrs. Clements nodded. Anne spoke of a secret, something that could harm Sir Percival. "She's gone into hiding, fearing his wrath." Walter's determination grew. "I must find her. She may hold the key to protecting Laura." Meanwhile, at Limmeridge House, Laura sat in the drawing room, her hands trembling as she held Sir Percival's letter of proposal. Marian watched her sister. "Laura, you mustn't rush this decision," Marian urged. "Remember, your happiness is what truly matters." Laura whispered, "I promised Father I would marry Sir Percival, but my heart, it aches for Walter." Marian embraced her sister. "Then let your heart lead you, Laura. No promise is worth the cost of your joy." As the sisters shared a moment of solace, Sir Percival's shadow loomed in the doorway. "Laura, have you made your decision?" he asked. Laura stood, her resolve hardening. "Yes, Sir Percival, I will marry you, but know this. I do so for my father's sake, not for love." Sir Percival's eyes narrowed, but he masked his displeasure with a curt nod. "Very well, we shall proceed with the arrangements." After Sir Percival left, Marian turned to Laura. "Are you certain about this, Laura?" Laura replied, "I must be. For father, for the estate, for everything but my own heart." Back on the moors, Walter's search led him to a secluded farm where Anne was rumored to be hiding. As he approached, a figure clad in white emerged from the shadows. It was Anne. "Mr. Hartright," Anne said, her voice laced with fear. "You mustn't tell Sir Percival you found me." "I won't," Walter assured her. "But we need your help to protect Laura. She's in danger from Sir Percival's schemes." Anne's eyes widened. "Then I shall tell you everything, for Laura's sake, and for justice." As the chapter closed, the pieces of the past began to fall into place, revealing a web of deception that threatened to ensnare Laura. But with Marian's unwavering support and Walter's quest for truth, hope remained that they could unveil the shadows and light the way to salvation. Anne, with a voice trembling but resolute, began to recount her tale, weaving a story of past wrongs and dark secrets that Sir Percival would do anything to keep buried. "It all began when I overheard a conversation," Anne whispered. "A conversation that revealed Sir Percival's darkest deed." Walter listened intently, knowing that each word Anne spoke was a step closer to saving Laura from a grim fate. Shadows over Blackwater. Upon entering the house, Laura's gaze was immediately drawn to the grand staircase. Its banister polished to a shine that seemed to mock the dimness enveloping the rest of Blackwater Park. Marian, trailing behind, felt the weight of the oppressive air, thick with dust and silence. The house, once a symbol of familial comfort, now whispered of neglect and secrets. Sir Percival Glyde's greeting was curt, a stark contrast to the warm welcomes of the past. "I hope you find everything in order," he said, his voice devoid of the charm that once endeared him to Laura. A brief memory flashed in Marian's mind. Sir Percival, once jovial and attentive, now reduced to terse words and averted gazes. The change was disconcerting, and Marian wondered what had soured his spirit. That night, as Laura lay in her old room, the moonlight cast an ethereal glow on the portrait of her mother. She felt a connection, a silent plea from the canvas, urging her to uncover the truth that Blackwater Park concealed. The next morning she confided in Marian, "I feel Mother's presence guiding us. We must be brave." In the boathouse, they found not emptiness, but an old gardener, his hands gnarled like the roots of the trees he tended. "Miss Laura, I've seen her. The lady you seek," he rasped, his eyes reflecting the moonlit lake. The gardener's voice was a whisper, yet it carried the weight of untold stories. "She comes here often, speaking to the waters as if they hold answers," he continued, his gaze never leaving the still surface of the lake. Laura's heart quickened. Anne's presence felt so close, yet just out of reach. "We must speak with her, learn what she knows," Marian said, determination stealing her voice. As dawn broke, casting a soft light over the park, the sisters knew that the day would bring them closer to the truth, whatever it may be. They turned back to the house, the morning sun casting long shadows behind them, as if the past itself was reaching out, intertwining with their steps towards an uncertain future. The Count's manipulations. In the shadowed corners of Blackwater Park, Count Fosco's fingers danced upon the desk with calculated ease, while Sir Percival Glyde's unease grew palpable in the silence between them. "Count, are you certain of success?" Sir Percival's voice was a strained murmur. "Without a doubt, Sir Percival," Count Fosco assured, his tone a melody of confidence. "Once we have the documents signed, the fortune will be ours." Marian Halcombe, her intuition sharpened by concern, paced the gardens, her thoughts consumed by her sister's safety. That night, Laura fairly confided her fears to Anne Catherick by the boathouse, her voice a whisper of dread. "They're plotting something dire, Anne. I can feel it." "You must hold fast, Laura. We'll find a way," Anne replied, her own fear a shadow in her eyes. The following dawn, Marian intercepted a letter meant for Count Fosco. The words within confirmed her worst suspicions, a scheme to seize Laura's trust. Heart-pounding, she sought her sister only to find her gone. Confronting Count Fosco, Marian's voice was steel. "Where is Laura?" "Miss Halcombe, your distress is unbecoming," Count Fosco chided, his innocence feigned. "Laura is safe. Safe or sequestered for your gain." Marian's accusation was sharp. Count Fosco's smile was unyielding. "Why would I harm my niece?" But Marian was resolute. "I will find her, Count. Your deceit will not stand." As she departed, Count Fosco's facade crumbled. His machinations were at risk, and time was the enemy. Meanwhile, Laura, hidden away, grappled with her reality. The walls of her gilded cage closed in, and with each passing moment her resolve hardened. She would not be a pawn in their game. In the midst of this turmoil, a new ally emerged for Marian. A seasoned detective, Mr. Hartright, whose keen eye and sage advice promised a glimmer of hope. Together, they began to piece together the puzzle of Laura's plight. Count Fosco, meanwhile, employed his arsenal of manipulation, flattery, charm, and intimidation to weave his web. Yet, as Laura's awareness grew, so did her courage. She would not succumb without a fight. The stage was set, the players ready, and the battle for truth and deception had reached a fever pitch. Mr. Hartright, with his detective's acumen, began to unravel the threads of deceit. He observed the nuances of behavior and speech that betrayed the true intentions of those around him. With Marian's assistance, they uncovered evidence of the Count's machinations, piecing together the puzzle of Laura's disappearance. As the investigation deepened, Laura, in her seclusion, found an inner strength she never knew she possessed. She began to plan, to strategize, to find a way out of the web that had been spun around her. The game was afoot, and each player held their breath, waiting for the next move in this deadly game of chess. The disappearance. The mist hung low over the grounds of Blackwater Park, shrouding the boathouse in a ghostly veil. As Laura fairly approached the shadowy structure, her eyes scanned the murky waters for any sign of Anne Catherick, the woman in white who had summoned her here with urgent whispers. "Laura, you must listen." Anne's voice was barely audible over the lapping waves. "They are watching us, plotting against you. You must come back tomorrow alone." Before Laura could respond, Anne vanished into the thick woods. With a newfound resolve, Laura made her way back to the safety of the house. "Marian, I saw her. She was terrified, speaking of watchers and plots." Laura recounted to her half-sister, Marian Halcombe, who listened with a furrowed brow. "We must be cautious, Laura. This is no simple matter," Marian replied, her mind racing with the implications of Anne's words. The next day, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Laura returned to the boathouse. Anne was nowhere to be found. The sisters' search led them to a clearing where they found a piece of paper with a single word scrawled upon it: "Dig." It was a clue, a desperate message from Anne, perhaps, or a trap set by their enemies. As night fell, the sisters were left with more questions than answers. Who was the mysterious figure at the lake? What did the footsteps in the plantation belong to? And where was Anne Catherick? As they stood in the clearing, Laura's mind raced with questions. "We must find Anne and uncover the truth behind these cryptic messages," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "I fear for her safety, and we cannot ignore the possibility that she may be in grave danger." Marian nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "We will start by retracing our steps and searching the areas we have not yet explored. Anne must be found, and we will not rest until we uncover the truth behind her disappearance." Together, the sisters embarked on a thorough search of the grounds, their eyes sharp and their resolve unwavering. Little did they know that their quest for answers would lead them deeper into a web of secrets and deceit, where nothing was as it seemed and danger lurked in every shadow. The Brotherhood's shadow. In the dimly lit corners of the opera house, Walter Hartright's eyes were fixed on the enigmatic figure of Count Fosco, who sat indulging in the night's performance. "Look at him, Pesca," Walter whispered. "Does he not seem like a man with secrets?" Pesca, fidgeting with his opera glasses, replied cautiously, "Walter, we must be careful. The Brotherhood's eyes are everywhere, and Fosco is no ordinary member." Walter nodded, his gaze never leaving Fosco. "I need to know if he's the one who can confirm Laura's identity. Her inheritance, her very life, may depend on it." As the audience's applause thundered at the conclusion of the opera, Walter seized the moment to confront Fosco. He navigated through the throng of departing spectators and approached the Count, who was slowly making his way to a less crowded antechamber. "Count Fosco," Walter began, "I must ask you about a woman named Anne Catherick. Do you know her?" Fosco's eyes flickered with recognition, but his voice remained steady. "Mr. Hartright, I'm afraid you are mistaken. I know no such woman." Walter pressed on. "And what of the Brotherhood? Does that stir any memories?" Fosco's face momentarily betrayed a hint of unease. "The Brotherhood," he murmured, "is a chapter of my life I prefer to keep closed." Walter leaned in closer, his voice firm. "Yet it's a chapter that must be reopened for justice's sake. Laura Fairley's fate hangs in the balance, and you, Count Fosco, hold the key." Fosco sighed, leading Walter to a secluded alcove. "I was once a fervent member of the Brotherhood, but those days are behind me. Yet, the mark remains," he said, rolling up his sleeve to reveal a small, faded symbol. Walter studied the mark, a mix of dread and anticipation swirling within him. "And does this mark not bind you to a code? A code that demands you speak the truth when a life is unjustly endangered?" Fosco's eyes met Walter's, a silent understanding passing between them. "Yes, it does. And it is for that reason I will help you. We must be discreet, for the Brotherhood does not forgive betrayal." Walter, with renewed hope, replied, "Then we shall uncover the truth together, for it is the only way to protect Laura and Anne from the shadows that seek to ensnare them." As they emerged from the opera house, the night air seemed to carry a sense of foreboding, yet Walter felt a step closer to unraveling the mystery that had long cast a dark veil over their lives. Triumph of Truth. The sun was setting over Limmeridge House as the villagers gathered, their faces alight with anticipation. Laura Fairley stood at the center, her eyes reflecting the golden hues of twilight. Marion, her loyal half-sister, was at her side, offering a comforting hand. "Look at them, Marion," Laura whispered, her voice barely audible over the murmur of the crowd. "They believe in us." Marion squeezed her hand. "They always have, Laura. And now we'll show them the truth." Mr. Kyle, the family lawyer, stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "we are gathered here to right a grievous wrong." A hush fell over the crowd as Laura took a deep breath. "I am Laura Fairley," she declared. "The funeral you witnessed was a cruel deception." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. A young boy stepped forward, his eyes wide. "But Miss Fairley, how can this be?" Laura knelt before him, her gaze steady. "Because, dear one, there are those who wish to steal my identity, my inheritance. But with the help of my sister and Mr. Hartright, we've uncovered their deceit." The boy nodded, a look of understanding dawning on his face. "And the woman in white?" he asked. "That was Anne Catherick," Marion interjected, "a friend who was in danger but is now safe, hidden away until the storm passes." Laura rose, turning to address the crowd once more. "With evidence meticulously gathered by Walter Hartright through his unwavering investigation into the affairs of Sir Percival and Count Fosco, we've exposed their schemes. They sought to rob me of my rightful place here at Limmeridge." An elderly farmer stepped forward, his face etched with concern. "And what of Count Fosco? What has become of that devil?" Marion's eyes darkened. His fate is yet to be decided, but rest assured his misdeeds have not gone unnoticed. The crowd erupted into cheers, the weight of fear and suspicion lifting from their shoulders. Laura smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude for the support of her friends and community. Just then, Walter Hartright emerged from the house, a small child in his arms. "Friends," he called out, "meet the newest member of Limmeridge, my son with Laura." Murmurs of surprise and delight swept through the crowd as Walter approached Laura. "Our son," he corrected, his eyes shining with pride. Laura took the child in her arms, her emotions